Okay, we're now going to go to public meeting item number 1. So if you go to page 5 on the agenda, that's the public meeting agenda, and it's the green packet in your folder. And this is, oops, hang on a second. Yeah. So public meeting item number 1 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness at 33 Peck Slip, which is in the South Street Seaport Historic District, docket number 15-7602, block 107, lot 38, a group of 5 commercial buildings built between 1851 and 1856. This is an application to install awnings, light fixtures, railings, and to remove a landing platform. Oh, and this was read into the record on July 22nd and is being presented for the first time today.
Because public meeting, you'll have to open the hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, is that what we're waiting for?
Well, once they speak, though, after the presentation from the staff person.
Oh, we'll have to
Once
go
they have a question, then you can-
Thanks.
Good morning, Carousel Preservation staff. 33 Peck Slip is a corner building located on the corner of Peck Slip and Front Street. The application being presented to the commission today includes the installation of a continuous awning along Front Street that wraps around, along Peck Slip that wraps around to Front Street, as well as the installation of gas lamp fixtures at the storefront piers and the removal of a landing on Front Street. The work also includes installation of railings at the existing 2-story addition, one at the roof and one at the second story of the addition, as well as the installation of canopies at the levels of the existing addition. The owner is here to present the application.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and
I'm
Commissioners.
sorry, I first have to open the hearing. Motion to reopen the hearing. All in favor?
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Will Obeid. I'm a principal with Gemini Real Estate Advisors. We're a developer, owner, and operator of hotels in New York City. We currently own and operate 9 hotels in New York. This project is a 72-room existing Best Western that we're going to be converting into a boutique hotel. Our most recent project of this nature is the Jade Greenwich Village, in another historic and sensitive neighborhood. With me today is our development and design team. I'm going to have Richard Cameron of Atelier present the design elements that we're here to discuss with you today. Richard?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Richard Cameron from Atelier. We're the designers for the project. Brown from MLG Architects is here for the architecture firm. We've got a fair number of slides to go through. You have them in your packet as well, so I think I'll just go forward and tell you what we're going to do.
That's good, yes.
Interrupt me as you choose, because I don't want to keep you here for an hour while I talk about it. I'll get started.
Okay.
This is a photograph of the existing building, and here's the historic district, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. A couple very quick, just kind of inspiration images to give you an idea of where we started with this. We're looking back particularly at the era of sail, the ship chandleries, and the ships, the kind of forest of masts and canvas that were down along the historic seaport up until really the beginning of the 20th century, and that's partly what inspired some of the material choices that we made here. We're proceeding with this, we're looking back to that earlier era. Another exterior landing. You can see some of the buildings to the left, their awnings and canopies and so forth. There's an historic picture which we think is around 1940. I think it's actually attached with the photograph. You can see the nature of the buildings. They were built as a series of individual buildings which are connected together, all for a single owner. Named Harris Stone, who was a Chandler provisions agent. And the facade at the ground level has been pretty dramatically changed over the years, but the upper portions of the building remain largely intact. They're granite lintels and brownstone sills. What we're proposing to do is to move the entrance to the existing Best Western from Peck Slip around the corner onto Front Street. And for several reasons. One is because we think it gives us a better lobby. It takes some of the traffic off Peck Slip, allows the Peck Slip front to become entirely a commercial storefront. And we're going to restore the storefront. And I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a error in the drawing. The rendering has been completely updated, so the existing doors have been replaced with a storefront window to match the ones immediately adjacent to it. Here you can see the proposed new lobby, the proposed new entrance. As part of this, we'd like to get rid of, there is a platform here immediately to the right of what we'd like to be the front door, which seems to be from the 1970s, although there was clearly some kind of platform there off and on over the years. We'd like to remove that so we can have a facade along there for the entry experience. You can see here the rendering of what we're trying to accomplish here. We'd like to put historic gas lighting along here and along Front Street, very much the way we did with the project in Greenwich Village. It's interesting, during the course of working on this in the past year, the old modern street lamps on Peck Slip have now been replaced with historic ones within the space of the past year, so I think it's actually an appropriate relationship in terms of the lighting. Here's the elevation on Front Street with the new door, you can see, continuous awning. Signage, we'd like to repaint the ground floor to look more like the kind of thing you see in some of the other parts of the neighborhood, kind of the granite color of the ground floor, just like the lighter look of this. I'm not quite sure why they picked this wonderful brown color that they picked from Best Western, but it's not that congenial. There's the platform that we'd like to get. I'm going to go some photographs of it in your packet. You can see photographs that are taken from different angles. And before and after drawings of the condition up front. Some shots of the inside of the platform showing the existing fabric back to the wall. We would also like to replace, there are a series of odd kind of railings on the upper level after the rooftop addition was put on, not very attractive and some rather heavy. We'd like to replace those with something that's a little bit more appropriate and also potentially less visible, like the pink and white gray to go along with the color of the upper portion of the penthouse. And there are mock-ups showing the location here, the existing railings that are there. Again, I think probably from the 1970s. The upper level here at the penthouse, this is the railing we're proposing to use and the color that we'd like to paint it. And here are some mock-ups of the locations of those railings, the upper portion of the building. Digital mock-ups, I should add. We didn't mock up the entire railing across the top. We'd also like to put in new awnings on the building, both at the ground floor and at the upper level for some of the rooms that have terraces up there. We had a discussion about this with staff. Our inclination in the direction of a continuous awning is partly that it just looks better, frankly, along the ground floor, we think. It also has many historic precedents from the neighborhood. There's an historic shot. This is actually part of the exhibit that's down at C4 right now. It's funny, I was going along looking at it, and I just noticed right away this all along, I think, South Street here. You can see awnings like this as you did in some of the earlier lithographs and renderings. I think that it kind of relates in a lovely way to the old Salem quality of the neighborhood. You can see a few more here to the right in the historic picture of Peck Slip. And this just happened to find a picture of Francis Tavern from around the turn of the 20th century with a very similar kind of awning running along the ground floor level. So that's the kind of inspiration that drove this. And there's a rendering of the thing looking across from the and just some attachment details and so forth. I'm happy to go over these if you'd like to discuss the details. So I'll just go through these quickly. Renderings from various directions, connection details, and the color. And I have a sample board. I don't know if you can see it. It's grounders. Sample of the awning fabric we're proposing to use on the lower level and the upper level. On the upper level, they're plain gray color, and the lower level we'd like to use this frame white stripe to give it some character. And in terms of the lighting, we have two different lighting fixtures we'd like to use. One obviously is inspired by all the original historic lighting that was down here. As I said, this historic lamppost they've just been recently put in down Peck Slip and along Front Street. Here's a picture, I think, from somewhere in the mid-20th century when they were still in use historically. There was some concern raised about how we might attach that to some of the existing, there's a little bit of existing cast iron on the site, and walking around the neighborhood, there are actually some examples where they've managed to mount using a bracket system over top of the existing cast iron, so we would propose doing that in the few cases where we actually have cast iron left over on the side. Making the attachments. I'd like to get rid of the existing floodlighting that was put into that splicer and is intrusive to the look of the building. And here are the company we're proposing to use, the company that makes historic lighting out of New Orleans. Bevel lighting go along Peck Slip and then again along Front Street. There's fixtures we'd like to use down at the ground level, storefront lighting. We think that, the idea here obviously is to give it kind of romantic character. It's been very well received in the village, and like to employ it again here. And at the upper level, we'd like to do something a bit more industrial and maritime looking. So you see this fixture for an electric light to replace the existing fixtures that are on the wall outside the doors of the terrace level rooms. And then here are just the locations of all of these things and the two fixtures themselves. And finally, we'd like to remove the existing signage that's hanging off the base of the building and go back to the traditional type of signage you see down in the historic seaport with painted signage along the frieze level of the building. So you see all the Bauman Company is maybe the most famous example of that. And remove the raised metal lettering and go back to something that's entirely consistent with what we think is more elegant.
Do you have a visual of that? Is that where you're proposing the sign?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then potentially some just on the glass, the storefront glass,
Yeah.
probably gold.
So just to sum up here, the storefront changes and the signage are eligible for a staff level permit pursuant to the rules. So those are not part of today's application. And what is before you is the modification of the loading platform, the installation of the light fixtures, the installation of the continuous awning, and the railings at the rooftop. So those are the components that you'll be reviewing.
Okay, thank you. All right,
And
questions?
painting the rooftop addition.
Yes, any questions for the applicant? Yes, Roberta? The loading dock is not historic,
Non-historic
but the...
feature, but there is no rule for a change like that on the street facade.
So, and that is it right there, is that the loading dock? Where is that?
Not the loading dock, it's a platform, and
It was at some point a kind of loading dock. If you, I can flip all the way back, like,
Just, what are you doing? So what
They
is
rem-
just want to remove what is
They put it-
effectively largely demolished and replace loading dock from around the front door area. And we are actually going to leave the one that's down here, which is much more significant and much more historic character than the neighborhood. So-
right, and can you just indicate where that, the loading dock, not the loading dock, the platform, it's right there, right?
Right.
Okay.
So there were two, one's fixed, is that what it is? There were two?
It seems, yeah. We've done a lot of, sort of historic photographic research, and, there were various things at various times over the years, but that seems to be a remnant of one that was there for that property on the corner, yeah.
And is your railing also the same color scheme of gray, or is that, it's gray?
It's actually in the, there's a indication of color.
In the,
Yeah.
okay.
We thought the pale gray would dissolve against the sky.
Right,
and then
that's-
the color, so other than the black that's there now, we're trying to really basically make the railing go away. In fact, we have to have it because there are rooms with terraces there, but we'd like to just, go into the background.
Okay. And just on the lighting fixture that you're proposing all along the facade, I know that you noted that that was something similar that you did in the West Village, I believe. Do you know whether those kind of fixtures are within the Seaport District? Do you see them commonly, or is this
There were all over the Seaport fixtures just like that. And that's why I found it, I just noticed the other day that they started to put back the historic lampposts on. I didn't know why, it hadn't even occurred to me, and I was looking at it and realized just in the space of us working on this project in the past year, they replaced the historic lampposts. So there's clearly, I don't know if it's driven by the commission or not, but there's clearly an inclination to go back to historic lighting down in this part of the city, which, we're big fans of. So.
okay? Any questions? Yes.
Will that fixture be gas or incandescent?
Well, the street lighting is incandescent. Ours, the ones along here will be gas lighting. So it's very subtle. I mean, you see the one on the village, it's really a small single. It's like the kind of historic lighting you see in Park Slope or, a few remaining lights like that in the village. I think I was reading the historic designation, there are about 100 or just more than that surviving functioning gas lamps in
Right. My question on that issue is whether you see that in the Seaport District, because it's much more industrial, I don't know, and you may find them in more residential neighborhoods. So, but if you say that you do find them commonly over here, gas lights, gas lamps, rather.
At one point, they were everywhere in the Seaport.
Okay.
I mean, the Seaport has really gone through a pretty massive set of transitions, and at one point, the Seaport was both residential and
Okay.
industrial, really commercial, I guess, most accurate way to put it, right? It was chip chandlers, people live above the store, so it had that character, and that's what we're trying to address, particularly because it's a hotel, and we like to have that
Okay.
feel.
All right. Any other questions? We'll take public testimony. Barbara Zay.
Barbara Zay of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this storefront renovation a welcome improvement to the South Street Seaport. Our committee found the painted wooden signage and lighting particularly nice touches. We wondered, though, if the number of light fixtures on the piers could be reduced so that they do not clutter the base of this mid-19th century building. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? All right. Community Board 1 notes that the proposed continuous fabric awning wrapping the corner of Front Street and Peck Slip is appropriate, and CV1 recommends the canopy be properly secured and maintained to prevent wind damage and deterioration. And they also note that the 6th and 7th story fixed terrace canopies along Peck Slip are highly visible, large in scale, and susceptible to damage from heavy winds. Community Board recommends that the Commission approve the proposed addition and facade renovation. So they support the project. All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, we will close the hearing then. All in favor? Any opposed? Questions and comments on this case?
I think it's a good improvement.
I think so too.
I think perhaps the number of light fixtures, gas light fixtures is excessive, but maybe that could be worked out with staff. And I like the continuous awning. I know often we don't do continuous awnings, but I think in this case it seems right for some reason. But I will point out the obvious, that your white and gray within a few weeks will be gray and dark gray.
Any other comments? Yes.
If I would agree with Fred. When you look at the old photographs of the Seaport, it's almost always continuous awnings down those areas. Actually, they extended all the way across the sidewalks. I would also agree with the comment about the excessive number of light fixtures.
Okay, they can definitely work with them on that. Is there any concern about removal of the platform? I didn't see any issues with that. Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment that Front Street really is characterized by a number of those kinds of platforms. So, but the fact that they're retaining the loading dock, which is much more authentic, therefore doesn't give me pause, but there is actually a real character about walking around those platforms and how they're used actually by the businesses that are on them right now.
Okay. Michael, do you want to read the resolution? Thanks.
In the matter of 33 Peck Slip, the South Street Seaport Historic District, an application to install awnings, light fixtures, and railings and remove a landing platform. I I recommend approval, finding that the continuous gray and white striped awning of the ground floor will recall continuous awnings found in the historic commercial and market buildings of this age and style in this historic district. That removal of existing gooseneck light fixtures above the ground floor will eliminate non-historic feature which presently detracts from the building. That removal of the loading platform will not remove historical material, and it will be replaced with granite sidewalk pavers to match the existing sidewalk paving. That refinishing the exterior of the white stucco 7th floor rooftop addition in a gray finish will make a non-historic addition a less prominent feature of the roofscape. That the neutral gray color of the proposed awnings at the 6th and 7th floors and railing at the 7th floor will help these elements recede from view and blend in with the proposed gray exterior of the addition. That the railing at the 6th floor will only be minimally visible above the parapet wall, and that the light fixtures at the rooftop addition will not call undue attention to themselves. And that the applicant will work with staff to determine whether fewer light fixtures at the street level would be appropriate.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this resolution's passed.